I mean, I found it just as compelling the second time just then, watching these characters kind of live by their crazy reflexes as I did the first time I saw it. But maybe I can talk to you both first about Connie, one of the most interesting and kind of unpredictable characters I've seen in a film for a long time. I'm wondering whether there was an idea of Connie that you had, or if it was when this guy came to you. I'll start with you and then go to you.
Okay.
Was that, yeah. I mean, did you have an idea of Connie first, and then what happened?
So this film that we made prior to this was just kind of coming out, and Rob reached out to us, and he had just seen a still from it, and said, "I want to work with you. I don't care what it is," he hadn't seen the movie yet. And we were very much kind of fixated on this other film that we're doing next year, and you know, we decided to take the detour, and I had this general interest in kind of the prison ethos in America, and I was reading Executioner's Song by Norm Mailer and In the Belly of the Beast as well, and had just recently downloaded every episode of Cops, greatest American TV show. The first TV show to really bring America into the living rooms unannounced. It's an important show. Anyway, so I approached Rob and I said, hey, I have this idea for a movie. All I had was, it's called Good Time, and it's about a guy who's just released from prison who thinks that his vessel to freedom is owning a piece of land, and no matter how shitty that land could be. And that was it. And then we met him, and when we met him, we kind of saw someone who was on the run in a weird way, someone who was always looking over his shoulder, worrying, and manic as well, a manic energy, and we kind of started building the character from there. And then the character really was a collaboration in the sense that he really wanted to be someone who was street cast. He wanted to be opposite Buddy Duress and really fit with him. So we built the character up from birth all the way to the movie begins. It was really an elaborate character biography, and I didn't feel right moving on. I kind of it was like every 3 months you update what's up with this guy's life. And then I would send them to him, and he was on set, and then for doing Lost City of Z, and he couldn't come to New York at times, so I sent him a documentary by John Alpert called 1 Year in the Life of Crime, and these characters started to build themselves, and then the character of Connie really kind of stuck out. This kind of dead-end dreamer in a way, a winner who never wins, and somebody who's kind of can see the matrix of society because he did time in prison. And that's kind of the nexus of it.
I mean, I love the combination in Connie of being a guy who's incredibly wrong-headed, but also incredibly quick-witted at the same time in many ways. His ability to kind of think on his feet is incredible. And I wonder on set, because it's such a high-energy, high-tension experience to watch, but on set, was that comparable for you? And were you feeding off the kind of manic energy of the other actors and people around you? How did it feel to actually shoot the movie?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know whether you kind of orchestrate the mania of it, but I mean, it was definitely. I mean, the areas where we were shooting, and also just kind of shooting in the middle of the night constantly, and way. Normally you'd shoot for a maximum of 12 hours a day, and with this it's kind of a minimum of 15. and eventually it does kind of get to you, and you go a little crazy. It was an incredibly high intensity shoot, and also there's interesting things, like not a lot of the other characters had really seen the entire script, and so if you're the only one who's really seen it, and you're trying to kind of, I don't know, fit your performance in with a macro view of the entire story, it's kind of crazy when everyone else is, even with Jennifer Jason Leigh, like she hadn't seen the script when she was doing it, so she can just play. She's in her own movie, and whereas I don't know whether it even shows in the movie, but you kind of. I'm vaguely trying to fit these scenes, and whatever she's doing, I'm trying to react to it and then trying to fit it in some way into the movie as a whole. And it definitely does some kind of it's relatively stressful. That's not a very good answer.
You said something, Rob, before we started shooting. You said something interesting, and when I would take dailies and I would kind of take pieces of 10 Tricks Boy Never music and just put it on there without sound and just send them to you in the middle of the night. You would often say that Connie is like a Martian, like he's an alien superhero in a strange way, and his superpower is that he can see like 20 seconds into the future, and I thought that was fascinating because a lot of the writings of Mailer was the the con when they get out, the ex-con when they get out, they really are aliens in the landscape, and they're destined for recidivism. They're destined to kind of go back in this kind of vicious cycle. And I don't know, I thought it was you played it in the right way. You often, when Sean would frame you up, you would do these things with your eyes. They're just like, there's nothing behind it, but there's also like this huge well behind it. It was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, one of the first things Josh said was like, I think both of our reactions to the first draft of the script was like, he's a hero. He's a superhero. Because I mean, the first draft is pretty different as well, and the original ending was that Connie just kind of disappears. He's just this ghost who kind of disappears into the ether afterwards. And, I think as we were doing it, it's kind of it's fun and kind of interesting to play a part when you can feel that pretty much every element of the movie is trying to promote this character as a heroic character, and you could feel it. And like as we were shooting it, and you kind of just a certain shot where you in a conventional story, you would have this shot when you have the camera kind of placed like pointing up at the lead character as if you're having this kind of hero shot. Yeah. Everything's a hero shot, and you react to that as a performer, and it's interesting because that's how Connie sees himself was how I felt like I was being shot. And it kind of it affects the performance quite a lot.
And this isn't really a question, but I would just really like to congratulate you, because I just think everyone who sees the film just comes out going, Robert Pattinson, this is like the strongest work he's ever done today. It's so good. I hope everyone here agrees as well.
So OPN, he had seen my previous movie, and he really liked the way we were using music kind of exuberantly and romantically, just front and center. And we had a conversation. I shared the script with him. I showed him a bunch of images. I showed him some episodes of Cops, and yeah, he was, after Rob and Buddy, he was the next person attached to the movie. So he was making music actually early on, before we shot, and I had this like romantic idea that it would be like Friedkin and Sorcerer with Tangerine Dream, where they just sent him like, a bunch of tapes, and then that was the score. That wasn't the way this worked. We cut the movie most like 90%, and then edited the movie to his music. We scored it to the picture, and it was an unbelievably obsessive experience. He let me touch the synthesizers, which was, at first I thought he was, I was really self-conscious about it because I wouldn't want someone coming in. But he understood that we had this maximalist approach, that every single thing on the screen had a sound, and then we would build this soundscape through that. So we would find one piece in the shot, and then we'd come up with a sound for that, and then, mostly like, my favorite album of his is, I like Garden of Delete a lot. I think his new one, which I think comes out next year, is gonna blow people's minds, called Myriad. And I like his first album a lot, Echo Jams. Chuck Person's Echo Jams. But just the way he was using sound in a cinematic way. Like, I always thought that his music sounded like soundtracks for movies that didn't exist. So, yeah, we shared a lot. We actually, for a while, wanted to have Steve Hillage of Gong to be doing the guitar solos, because we talked about, I was really frustrated when we started doing the score, because he works in Ableton, which is rhythm-based, and that was very frustrating to me, because the movie is all about breaking free, and these rhythms, it was hard for me to imagine. I always wanted these shreds, and he said, don't worry, we build the rhythm, and then we break free from it. And I was like, oh, we'll get Steve Hillage to do the guitar. And we talked to Steve, and he was down, but then I would just disappear, and OPN would just I would go have like grab us orange soda, and I'd come back, and he'd have these incredible soulful solos, and that kind of became the kind of theme of the soundtrack a little bit, was to break free of itself in a way. My brother seems to he likes to think that the movie is not New York. It is New York, but it's just an American city. It's very regional, and I think that you can always tell more about a place through its people and through the micro versus like, you know, a landmark or what have you. That's true of any book, movie, piece of music. Like the local news that doesn't have 100 producers on it is going to be a lot more personable than, you know, the national news. That's obvious. But yeah, the aesthetic of the neon, the lighting and such, that was something that Sean, the DP, Sean Price Williams, we talked about this concept of kind of like through the looking glass a little bit, that once Connie has his brother, or so he thinks, he kind of enters this journey, and it starts on the Accessoride. And that's where the lighting starts to become a little more demented, and his kind of, you know, determination is like is wrong and warped, and you start to see that through the lighting and such. I mean, Rob was very upfront in the beginning. He said, I want to read lines from a script. I'd say Talia, the girl who played Crystal, she read a little bit of the script, and then she said she didn't want to, and then we didn't want her to read it anyway. Thought that it would be better for her character if she was naive to what was happening. Jen, she only read her pages, and then I gave her like a huge character biography, which is, she didn't even read the script. She agreed to do the movie based on the character bio. And then Buddy read the script like 100 times. And Benny, obviously. Yeah, he had to have. But yeah, we didn't. There wasn't. You can read the script. It will be available at some point. It's very, very true to what's on screen.
Yeah, but it was kind of. I think there was improvisation around the script when we were doing it, but then it kind of ended up being I mean, pretty much every single line from the original script is in it, but there are 10,000 versions of the movie.
What's really wild is sometimes we would be doing a scene and Rob would improvise a line from a draft 10 drafts prior. And I would hear it and I would turn to Benny and I would say, that's so insane that he brought back like a 3-line piece of dialogue from a script 4 or 5 months prior, that it was just stuck in his head somehow.
The one bit I remember, a very significant moment of improvisation, which I didn't think anyone would catch, but when me and Buddy are fighting in the bed, and he said these 3 lines, and Josh is one of the only people in the world who would know that the lines I was saying were from an interlude on an Old Dirty Bastard album. And
the second he said it, I said, Rob, you can't say it.
It's like, you don't try and make out, but you're just making that up. Like, you're literally like,
it's not in the movie, but it was. Yeah, he says, you shut the fuck up. You shut the fuck up. That's what you do. And I said, I looked at Benny. I was like, that's Old Dirty Bastard. What is he?
Sounds like there'll be some good outtakes then, yeah?
Yeah, I don't believe in deleted scenes, so. So our previous movie, we kind of perversely became obsessed with these long lenses. We were shooting on 1500 millimeter at times, safari lenses. And that film was largely plotless, but I noticed what it did for me in terms of, heightening. I mean, conceptually, a long lens, you're saying, observe something in micro, and that conceptually, I think everyone feels that, whether you know what a long lens is or not. So then, and I noticed that it brings people to the edge of their seat. So we talked about, what happens when you take that conceptually and you couple it with, a movie, that rides on thrill. It's a thriller, and it's chemical. It's a chemical equation in a way. And that was, I mean, I also love. We just shot a video with a new DP, and it was he was pushing me to open up a little bit. I mean, it's conceptually didn't make sense to have such long lenses, but one of the camera department people who was on good time told him, he said, yeah, I want to use some wider lenses. And he said, just so you know, like Safdie's consider like full head a wide shot. So I thought that was funny to hear from a point of view.